Hello, beautiful beings of light. I am Molly Douglas. This is Lit from Within, and I'm connecting in because of these eclipse frequencies that we have going on, this gateway. And I want to share about what's been coming up through the collective energy and through the lens that I call the divine feminine frequency, as the channel that I work through. And also just what we are healing, what this eclipse energy means. So we've had the spring equinox. We're just coming past that. If you are watching this now or later, whenever this finds you, it's meant to be that timing. So trust the timing. That's definitely been a theme. Trust the timing. The equinox brings balance. So balance to our inner masculine and feminine energies, balance to our work and personal, balance to our inner and our outer. And so just feeling into that story of balance. And then in addition to that, we have the eclipse. We have our first eclipse on the Monday, the 25th. This partial lunar eclipse, which really has been being felt emotionally. This has been an emotional eclipse, with myself, with clients, with colleagues. It is an emotional one, and it's bringing up our fears, like these fears that limit us or keep us stuck, that we are like, damn, didn't I already work on this? Isn't this already something I've worked through? Okay, if you are on what I call the feminine path, if you feel like you have, you are on this awakened path, the spiritual path, you've been doing the heart healing, the alchemizing with really honestly, like diving into these shadow parts, with the mother wound. This is the mother wound that gets awakened. Any of those stories or of lack, of not enoughness, of unlovable, right? We can feel those through when we are healing the mother side, or that mother lineage, the ancestral wounds of what we're ready to break free of. It can be trust, it can be betrayal, feelings of acceptance, right? Any of those. And as we're working through on the masculine side, because we kind of need the feminine energy awakened and aware and aligned in order to hold the wounds of the masculine, which can come more physical. And I feel like that's where this one has really been coming through, is the wounds that have either showed up already on the feminine side, but maybe more on like the father lineage, and maybe on the lineage of your father, where there has been that lack, that scarcity, the fears of that inconsistency of love. So all these fears, all these worries, these self-doubts are coming from a place of fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of lack of and scarcity, not enoughness, and for some, like too muchness, right? It's that double-edged sword, not enough, too much. And the biggest, this all comes back to learning to love and feel loved without condition, to receive, right? To open and receive. And the first thing we have to have is trust. So any of these places where there has been mistrust, where it has been difficult to trust, especially with love and attachment. This is all about relationships. This eclipse. And eclipses are like spiritual fast tracks. They're like spiritual portals that just like, they align us right where we need to be. They help us release. And I love this part, and it's the most difficult, that it allows everything to come to the surface. So allow it to be seen, allow it to be heard, allow it to be felt. It's kind of like an underwater archaeological, dig when you come into my therapy sessions is that we dive deep. We dive deep into these places and spaces, and you have to have a safe place in order to do that. And what we do is we bring those gems up to the surface in order to be seen, to be felt, to be heard. And that's just allowing you to speak your truth, to connect into the feelings, connect into the stories that are connected to the past, the inner child, where those wounds originated. And sometimes it even goes deeper into generational trauma, generational stories and patterns and beliefs, and even deeper. Sometimes it's lifetimes worth, right? Those soul stories. So just allowing those to have a voice, and through soul's expression, through creative expression, through being witnessed, being seen, because then we can integrate it, we can alchemize it, and we can release the parts that no longer serve, like the stories, the narratives, the beliefs, right? And we can rewrite another one. We can write what the actual truth is, because we created that truth based on the inner child, based on what was available for a child to understand, if this was trauma or childhood trauma. And a child's mind is very egocentric, so it's what did I do wrong? If there is a caregiver who has an avoidant attachment or has a push-pull, where there's that difficulty to trust the consistency that the love will always be there, where that fear shows up, right? Where we then grow up as adults and it's very difficult to trust that love will be there for us. It's very difficult to trust that we are worthy of somebody's time, energy, and attention. I had a beautiful gift of someone bringing me strawberries of fresh fruit. And my initial thought, which is my go-to, my past, right, was like, oh, what can I do for them? What can I give them? How difficult is it for us to receive, just to receive without condition, to receive fully without guilt, to receive fully without feeling like we have to do something to earn it, to give back so that they, it's just without the fear, without the shame, without the doubt, to just open and receive. And when you are calling in, when I was calling in my abundance, to live with as my most abundant self, to the gift of receiving came into play. And I was receiving at my fullest when I was in Bali. I had this beautiful opportunity. It's always been a bucket list. It worked out divinely. A business that I let go of that barely even got off the ground, didn't even get off the ground, that I had to let go of, which was called Soul, by the way, was transmuted into this opportunity to have the finances to take this soul retreat in Bali by a beautiful friend. And my mindset was like, what can I do? What can I do to be a part of this? Right? How can I be of service? What can I give? And the gift was to just go fully and receive. And that was the scariest thing for me, the hardest thing for me, to feel deserving, to feel of value, to feel like I'm not doing enough, not giving enough. So there can be so many challenges around just opening to receive. And where have we had such a difficult time with feeling deserving, feeling our value, feeling our worth, feeling our abundance, without those obstacles, those challenges of shame, guilt, lack, scarcity? Because when you call in abundance, you also call in all those past stories that you've held of lack. And those run deep in my lineage and my family lineage. There's always been this story of not enoughness around finances, around money, around food, like these stories that have come up either generational, ancestral, of a way that, you know, either my dad grew up, or even his like family side, and then of course, you know, grandparents that went through the depression, these lineage wounds that were needing to be healed. So I was receiving my highest abundance and saying yes, and at the same time these lack and scarcity wounds were coming up so strong to be acknowledged, to be seen, to be held, to be felt. And you know, Kuan Yin was popping up everywhere. And Kuan Yin is the breaker of chains. She's this very beautiful cosmic being, this Bodhisattva, who reached enlightenment for having a compassionate and open heart, for being fiercely open. And she said to have come from the stars, and rides on the back of these two pink dragons. And her energy just kept popping up everywhere for me in Bali, to hold myself with compassion, to hold others with compassion, and what I call humanness, you know, for the places and spaces and parts where there wasn't that need received, right? With parents or parenting, like that wasn't available because it was never available to them, so they didn't know how to give it. If a parent was not loved, right, or did not feel love or lovable, if trauma got in the way of that, because trauma gets in the way of emotions and being able to receive and open to receive love. And we're all working through, as a collective, the wounds around love without condition, love without dependency. That is that sacred union path, to recognize where those stories have come in, where trauma in the past has created this difficulty with loving, with feeling loved without condition, without strings, without challenges, without you know, what I call the humanness, the catches, the if you do this for me, then I can do this for you. If you give this to me, then I'll give this to you. And yes, there is reciprocity, but we can also just open to receive the goddamn strawberries because somebody wants to give them to us, and that is okay. And to fully receive that and accept that from a place of deserving, right, of value, of knowing that abundance, right, that abundance, whether you're receiving money from someone, whether you're receiving a job, in a relationship, that creates the ripple, because it's through that scarcity lens, through that not enoughness, that we, through our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, that we hold, right, that we hold back, that we pull back, that we're not open to receive, that we're like, I don't have this to give. There is no ripple. But when we give our love, when we give our energy, our time, our attention, and I'm not talking about overgiving, not talking about the overgiver, the self-sacrificer. Those are the shadow wounds of the divine alchemist, of the heart healer, which Kuan Yin works so well with, to to release those ancestral chains. I'm talking about when you have it to give, when you feel abundant, when you are abundant, when you are giving from a limitless place, which is through you, which is connected into divine source energy, when you are being given such abundant, beautiful blessings, then you have them to share, right? Then we have so much more to share without condition, without limits, without expectation of, well, I'll do this, but you have to do this. There's so much more into that, right? With boundaries and discernment and using your intuition, and again, not falling into that overgiver and not falling into that self-sacrificer energies. But yeah, knowing that it will come around when you can create some abundance for somebody else. And when we open in to accept that and receive that, whether that's help or support, then we will know when it's time to create that ripple for somebody else, because we will have it to give. We will have had the experience in order to support that. And that releases and dissolves these wounds of the past, of trauma, of lack, of scarcity, of not enoughness. We don't have it to give, so we can't share it with others, kind of thing. Food, money, resources, most importantly, love. We have so many conditions around love, so many dependencies around love. And so I trust. You have to have that trust to have that safety. I allow. Allowing is knowing you have choices, right? It's not a force. It's not an obligation. It really is coming from a heart opened space. And when the heart opens, the mind opens. And as we learn to trust and drop down past those old stories of the mind into the heart lens, that 12-inch journey from head or mind to heart connects us into our body. It allows us to see ourselves, our relationships, our situations through that lens of compassion, with more distance, with more emotional distance that feels too overwhelming. And for the humanness that is this experience on this planet, it allows us to really feel the humanness of the past, of the trauma, of the reason why our parent couldn't connect to us or couldn't give us what we needed fully or received, or why that inconsistency was there, why there was this difficulty of attachment or difficulty of giving, because it wasn't there for them either. And that is the biggest humanist story we can hold, to see our past through, of what our inner child did not receive was not because it wasn't deserving, and they weren't of value, that you weren't of value, that you weren't deserving, but that it just was not there. And we can't give what we don't have. So, let's just hold that a minute. Right? There's a really beautiful book that was recommended to me by my brother. It ended up being like a sibling book read. And then I recommended it to clients, to colleagues, to friends, and there's so many people I know reading this book, and I've mentioned it before and I'm going to keep mentioning it again, but it's called Recovering from Emotionally Immature Parents. And I wish I had it here, but I'm packed up my house in the middle of transitioning and moving. So I don't have it, but I will refer to it down below the video. And there's several. There's like Recovering from Emotionally Immature Parents. There's a workbook. There's something else, but Lindsay Brown, yes. And then I recently heard that she was also on Glennon Doyle, the podcast, We Can Do Hard Things. What a beautiful match those two energies are, or that podcast, all the, the partnership on there. So many things I could talk about with that. That's beautiful sacred union energy there. And with Lindsay's book. And yeah, it's really helpful to see where that emotional mindset gets stuck, especially when there's such difficulty opening up to do the work. The mindset will not change if you're not willing to open to receiving, therapy or support that's going to help understand trauma, understand what happens to the mind, understand where we store it in the body, understand how we only have a certain mindset when we're a child, and it's all around like ourselves. So the only way we can make sense out of not getting our needs met or abuse is that we did something wrong, because that is our capacity at that age. So that's what we continue to consciously or subconsciously feel as an adult until we rewrite those stories and understand the experience from a bigger lens, from a higher lens or a spiritual lens, higher self lens, that allows you to see that and alchemize it and heal those stories, that allows us to open and receive, right? We keep ourselves guarded from the painful things, from when, and especially around love, especially when it's been held back, when it's been manipulated, when it's been, there's been a betrayal of trust, right? And so starting first with just feeling safe in the body, learning to trust, knowing that you have choices, right? You can choose to open, you can choose to not, but it's your choice. And as you begin to regain that empowerment, right? As you begin to heal these stories, then you can begin to open and receive. And even just the practice of starting at the heart center with the hands on the heart of I trust. I trust I am safe in this moment. I trust that all my needs are met in this moment for me to be right here, right now, present. And to feel what feels pleasant in the body. Because the more we connect to pleasant and the senses and safety and the body, the more we're going to want to be here. The more we can feel our intuition, to create our discernment, to make our decisions from a empowered place and an intuitive place versus, disconnected, dissociated, not in the body, or from past belief systems, versus what is true, what is our whole truth. So I trust. And then maybe you can just experiment a little bit. If I allow, you have choices, right? Maybe you choose what it feels like to open a little bit, right? To open up that heart center. You can even do some seated cat and cow forms, allowing the chin and tailbone to round and come down, and arching and coming open and lifting the head, the chin. Right? You have choices if you choose to open and move into that place, if it feels safe, if it's trusting the person, the relationship, the experience, right? We can begin to open and move forward into it. Or if it doesn't, right? We can always curl and round and, right? I trust. I allow. And maybe you open a little bit more, right? What does it feel like to just circle with the wings, letting the fingertips rest on the shoulders? You have choices. You can go forward. You can go back. You can even just expand a little more. And this is it, right? All you're doing is practicing in the body. But as we practice in the body, one, it's helping soothe the nervous system. It's helping to learn that you can trust the body, that if something feels unpleasant or uncomfortable, you can always move into something else. You can do something else. Or maybe you just experiment with letting the hands move all the way out into the receiving, right? Our arms, our hands are extensions of our heart. We have our receiving side connected to our feminine. That's why this can be a wound that comes to the surface when we are awakening into those feminine wounds, and when we are connecting into our divine feminine energy, our highest vibration of ourself, of that half of the wholeness of who we are. We are a wholeness of masculine and feminine energies to create our wholeness within. When we are opening up to that, those mother wounds are going to come up. That separation from the feminine, that separation from the nurturing, unconditional, loving, compassionate, all those divine mother energies that we so deeply desire and crave are because we've had such deep separation from it, from trauma, from a patriarchal lens for so long, for generations, of where the feminine has not been in balance, has not been honored, has not been seen as worthy. And so we literally have been separated from the ancient mother, which is a part of us. And it is now in this lifetime that we are healing that wound. And I get it. Some will get this. Those of you that tune into this, that feel aligned with this, that connect into those, that spiritual awakening path that you're on, whether this is the high priestess path, whether this is spiritual awakening, if you're on a sacred union path, like you will know that this is part of the healing journey. To be on a spiritually awakened path was sometimes called the quest, right? The quest for the Holy Grail. It's all within, and we have to do the shadow work, right? They used to slay the dragons, right? Fight the demons. This is your own inner quest. That shadow work, the dragons, the demons, right? It's the past. It's the beliefs. It's the limiting beliefs. It's the stories. It's what's been passed down to us. It's like, well, that's the way we've always done it. That's what our beliefs have always been. And it can be so simple as like things we heard growing up, right? Then there are really beautiful things we hear growing up that we want to continue to believe and to share and to pass on to generation. But there are also things like, don't get your hopes up. Like things like that, right? Things that are very limiting, things that are very like, pull your bootstraps up and just keep going. So many that we are learning that have served a purpose, right? They've served a purpose with survival, emotional survival, physical survival, mostly a lot of emotional survival. But now we have tools. We know that we can work through these shadowy places. We can challenge these beliefs, these limited mindsets. We can use our creative, intuitive ability, connection, because we're all born creative, we're all born intuitive, and we can work through these places and spaces, and it doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to be hard. You are fully capable to move through these challenges, these obstacles, to heal and alchemize. This is where the archetypes have presented themselves for me when I went through this journey with the sacred feminine, and they are here now moving through the sacred masculine. Very present, a lot of shadow work, and being able to receive is the biggest lesson, the biggest learning to trust, to allow, to open and to receive love without condition, to receive love without dependency, to be able to feel love without condition, and to be able to feel love without dependency, to feel capable of that, and to create that ripple of love, and to give without condition and strings and attachments, or from this place of scarcity or lack of, even food. Like, food can be such a scarcity lens. For myself, it has in the past, with no stories that are aware, except that, ancestral, there was, there have been generationals of famines, there have been generationals of depression, there's those stories of not enough or lack when it comes to food, money, sex. Ooh, these are all sacral. You feeling that? This is all sacral energy. Time. Like, we have such a lack and scarcity of not enoughness for our needs being met. This is all very survival. It's being rewritten, especially with love, because love is limitless. And when we release those attachments, when we release those conditions, when we release the dependency on something, someone, something that fills that void, whether that's helping us to, like addictions, right? Something we are choosing, not choosing. That goes into whole other stories. But love without condition, without dependency, is really this return to our wholeness, our inner masculine and our inner feminine within, right? With that love without condition, that love without dependent of someone else outside of ourselves. Not that it's not available to us, and that sharing ourself as a whole being with someone else is absolutely divine. And but yeah, you have your whole self to give, right? To give without condition, to give without strings, to give without lack or scarcity, to give with trust that the consistency will be there. Like, huge, right? And to receive that from somebody else in that fullness and that wholeness. Like, what else is going to heal this world but that alignment and that union, and creating that ripple of light within ourselves, within our relationships, within the environment around us, our community, and the planet. Boom, boom. So, to receive is really our greatest abundance. And to love without condition and without dependency is what we're here to help humanity evolve. So if this feels aligned to your soul mission, to your soul contracts, to your personal mission, I would love to hear from you in the comments. This may, you may just be awakening into this path. You may have been on it for a while. This may be something that is resonating and feeling that consistency, or those shadow places and spaces have been coming up for you to notice. And If you would like more support with that, I have information below this video of how to work with me one-on-one. I also offer creative intuitive sessions. I have courses in the Sacred Feminine Healing Arts Mystery School that I've created based on the archetypes of the Age of Light, and who those archetypes, those inner parts of self that came up for me during my journey and are still continuously coming through. So if this is resonating with you, please feel free to reach out, and thank you so much for being a part of this community of light, of soul. And as always, with love and evolution, sending love and light and healing to you all as well.